Manifestation, myth or reality? For centuries, people have believed that thoughts have the power to shape reality. From ancient spiritual traditions to modern self-help movements, the idea of manifestation has inspired millions. Some claim they have transformed their lives simply by changing the way they think. Others argue it is little more than wishful thinking wrapped in motivational language. Can your thoughts really influence your future? Or is manifestation simply a psychological phenomenon that helps people notice opportunities they might otherwise ignore? Today, we're exploring one of the most debated topics in modern spirituality. Manifestation, myth or reality? Imagine waking up every morning believing that your life is about to change. Not because of luck. Not because someone else will rescue you. But because you believe your own thoughts, beliefs, and actions are shaping your future. This is the central idea behind manifestation. At its simplest, manifestation is the belief that focusing your mind on a desired outcome can increase the likelihood of that outcome becoming reality. Different traditions explain it in different ways. Some believe the universe responds to human thoughts through unseen energetic laws. Others suggest that our subconscious mind influences our decisions, habits, and confidence, ultimately creating better outcomes. Still others dismiss manifestation entirely, arguing that success comes only from hard work, planning, and chance. Despite these disagreements, manifestation has become one of the most popular subjects in personal development. Books, podcasts, documentaries, social media influencers, and motivational speakers frequently encourage people to visualize success, practice gratitude, and believe abundance is already on its way. But where did these ideas begin? The concept is much older than many people realize. Ancient Hindu philosophy teaches that thoughts influence karma and future experiences. Buddhist traditions emphasize the importance of intention in shaping one's path through life. Hermetic teachings describe the universe as fundamentally mental, suggesting that consciousness plays an essential role in creation. During the 19th century, the New Thought movement introduced the idea that positive thinking could improve health, wealth, and happiness. Writers such as Phineas Quimby and later Wallace Wattles argued that thought itself possessed creative power. These ideas eventually inspired Napoleon Hill's famous book Think and Grow Rich, published in 1937. Hill interviewed many successful business leaders and concluded that belief, persistence, and focused intention were common traits among achievers. Whether every claim in the book is historically accurate remains debated, but its influence is undeniable. Then, in 2006, the idea of manifestation exploded into mainstream culture with The Secret. The book and documentary introduced millions to what became known as the law of attraction. According to this philosophy, like attracts like. Positive thoughts attract positive experiences. Negative thoughts attract negative experiences. The concept was simple, easy to understand, and deeply appealing. If your thoughts could shape your future, then perhaps anyone could create a better life. Millions embraced the idea. Others remained skeptical. One criticism is that manifestation can oversimplify complex problems. People facing illness, poverty, discrimination, or tragedy may feel unfairly blamed if they're told they simply didn't manifest correctly. Most psychologists caution against this interpretation. Human lives are influenced by countless factors beyond individual control. At the same time, modern psychology has uncovered fascinating evidence showing that expectations really can influence behavior. This is known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone believes they are capable of succeeding, they often behave differently. They take more opportunities. They become more resilient after setbacks. They communicate with greater confidence. Over time, these behavioral changes can genuinely improve outcomes. In this sense, manifestation may work, not because the universe magically rearranges itself, but because belief changes behavior. Visualization offers another interesting example. Elite athletes have long used mental rehearsal before competitions. By vividly imagining successful performances, they prepare both mind and body for real situations. Studies suggest visualization can improve confidence, focus, and even certain aspects of physical performance when combined with consistent practice. Notice an important distinction. Visualization alone rarely produces results. Visualization combined with action often does. This leads to another psychological concept known as the reticular activating system. This network within the brain helps determine which information deserves our attention. When you buy a new car, you suddenly notice that model everywhere. The cars were always there. Your brain simply began paying attention. Some researchers suggest manifestation works similarly. When you focus intensely on a goal, your mind becomes better at recognizing opportunities related to that goal. Instead of creating opportunities from nothing, you become more aware of possibilities that previously went unnoticed. Confirmation bias may also play a role. People naturally remember successes more vividly than failures. If someone manifests a promotion after months of positive thinking, they may credit manifestation. If nothing happens, they may quietly move on. This tendency can reinforce belief without providing strong evidence that manifestation itself caused the outcome. Yet many individuals continue reporting remarkable experiences. Unexpected job offers, chance meetings, financial opportunities, creative breakthroughs, life-changing relationships. Whether these events result from coincidence, psychology, preparation, or something beyond current scientific understanding remains an open question. Scientific research has not demonstrated that thoughts alone can directly alter external reality through unknown universal forces. However, science does strongly support several practices commonly associated with manifestation. Setting clear goals improves motivation. Maintaining optimism can increase persistence. Practicing gratitude is linked with improved emotional well-being. Developing confidence often enhances performance. Building healthy habits produces measurable long-term results. These findings suggest that while the mystical claims surrounding manifestation remain unproven, many practical techniques associated with it have genuine psychological value. Some spiritual teachers take a balanced approach. Rather than expecting the universe to deliver success automatically, they encourage combining intention with disciplined action. Set a goal. Visualize success. Develop a plan. Work consistently. Adapt when obstacles appear. Remain grateful throughout the journey. This version of manifestation emphasizes personal responsibility rather than magical thinking. Critics warn against treating manifestation as a substitute for medical care, financial planning, education, or practical decision-making. Healthy optimism should complement reality, not replace it. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden within the manifestation debate has little to do with supernatural forces. It reminds us that our beliefs influence our choices. Our choices influence our habits. Our habits influence our future. Whether one attributes this process to psychology, spirituality, or something beyond current understanding depends largely upon individual perspective. Manifestation may not guarantee success. But neither should the power of mindset be dismissed. History is filled with inventors, artists, scientists, entrepreneurs, and explorers who first imagined possibilities others considered impossible. Every great achievement begins as an idea. The difference is that those ideas are eventually supported by action. So where does the truth lie? Is manifestation a universal law? A psychological tool? A combination of both? Or simply another chapter in humanity's endless search to understand the relationship between consciousness and reality? Perhaps the answer depends less on what we believe, and more on what we choose to do with those beliefs. The conversation continues. And the mystery remains. Part 2: The Ancient Origins of Manifestation. Long before the phrase law of attraction was ever coined. Long before motivational speakers filled stadiums. And long before social media popularized vision boards and manifestation journals. Human beings believed that thoughts, intentions, and unseen forces could influence reality. The desire to shape one's destiny appears in nearly every ancient civilization. Whether these traditions describe divine intervention, spiritual energy, karma, or universal consciousness, many shared a surprisingly similar idea. The mind matters. One of the oldest examples comes from ancient Egypt. The Egyptians believed that words possessed extraordinary creative power. In their creation myths, the god Tao was said to bring the world into existence first through thought, then through speech. Creation began in the mind before becoming physical reality. To ancient Egyptians, spoken words were not merely sounds. They carried spiritual force. Priests carefully recited sacred texts because they believed language itself could influence both the visible and invisible worlds. This belief in creative thought appears again in ancient India. The Hindu Vedas, some of humanity's oldest surviving spiritual texts, describe consciousness as a fundamental aspect of existence. Thoughts, intentions, and actions generate karma. Karma is often misunderstood as simple reward and punishment. In reality, it refers to cause and effect. Every intention creates consequences. Every action leaves an imprint. According to many Hindu traditions, the quality of one's thoughts helps shape future experiences over countless lifetimes. Rather than magically attracting wealth or success overnight, the emphasis is placed upon aligning one's inner state with righteous action. Buddhism expanded upon similar ideas. The opening verse of the Dhammapada famously declares, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought." While translations vary, the central message remains remarkably consistent. The mind shapes perception. Suffering often begins within the mind before appearing in external experience. Buddhism does not teach manifestation in the modern sense of attracting luxury cars or financial abundance. Instead, it teaches that mastering one's thoughts transforms one's experience of reality. Inner peace begins with mental discipline. Across the ancient world, Chinese philosophy also emphasized harmony between human intention and the greater universe. Taoism teaches that forcing outcomes often produces resistance. Instead, practitioners seek alignment with the Tao, the natural flow of existence. Rather than attempting to control reality, one learns to cooperate with it. This subtle distinction remains influential today. Some modern manifestation teachers encourage surrender after setting intentions, trusting that events will unfold naturally. The roots of this idea can be traced back thousands of years. Meanwhile, ancient Greece explored these questions through philosophy. Thinkers like Plato suggested that the material world reflected deeper, invisible realities. Later philosophers debated whether consciousness itself played a role in shaping experience. Although they did not teach manifestation as it is commonly understood today, they wrestled with one of humanity's oldest questions. Does reality begin with matter? Or with mind? These ideas continued evolving through Hermetic philosophy. Attributed to the legendary figure Hermes Trismegistus, Hermetic writings became highly influential throughout the ancient Mediterranean world. Perhaps their most famous teaching appears in the Emerald Tablet. As above, so below. Another foundational Hermetic principle declares, "The all is mind." According to this philosophy, the universe itself is fundamentally mental in nature. Reality emerges from consciousness. For centuries, mystics interpreted these teachings to mean that understanding the mind could unlock hidden aspects of reality. During the Middle Ages, many alchemists pursued more than the transformation of lead into gold. They viewed alchemy as a symbolic process of inner transformation. The true goal was not merely changing metals. It was changing the self, purifying the mind, expanding consciousness, transforming ignorance into wisdom. This inner transformation would later become central to many modern manifestation practices. By the Renaissance, Hermetic ideas resurfaced across Europe. Scholars, mystics, and philosophers began blending ancient spiritual traditions with emerging scientific curiosity. They believed humanity possessed untapped mental and spiritual potential. Although these ideas remained controversial, they quietly influenced generations of thinkers. By the 19th century, they evolved into the New Thought movement. Here, ancient spiritual concepts merged with optimism, psychology, and personal development. Positive thinking became more than a spiritual exercise. It became a practical philosophy for improving everyday life. This movement eventually inspired countless authors whose books remain bestsellers today. But an important question remains. Did ancient civilizations actually believe thoughts alone could change reality? Or have modern interpretations reshaped these older teachings? Many historians argue that today's manifestation movement simplifies ideas that were originally far more complex. Ancient traditions almost always emphasized action alongside intention, discipline alongside belief, responsibility alongside hope. Rarely did they suggest that wishing alone could transform one's circumstances. Instead, they taught that inner transformation naturally leads to wiser choices. Those wiser choices then influence one's future. In many ways, this perspective closely resembles modern psychology. Our beliefs affect our attitudes. Our attitudes influence our actions. Our actions shape our lives. Whether this process reflects spiritual law, human psychology, or both remains a matter of personal belief. Yet one fact is undeniable. For thousands of years, civilizations separated by oceans, languages, and cultures all explored the remarkable possibility that the human mind possesses far greater influence than we commonly realize. The names were different. The rituals were different. The explanations were different. But the question remained remarkably similar. Can changing ourselves change the world around us? That ancient question continues to inspire philosophers, scientists, psychologists, and spiritual seekers to this very day. And as we'll discover next, the 19th century transformed these ancient philosophies into a movement that would eventually become one of the world's most influential self-help ideas. Part 3: The birth of the New Thought movement. By the early 19th century, the world was changing faster than ever before. The Industrial Revolution was transforming cities. Scientific discoveries were challenging long-held religious beliefs. Medicine was beginning to replace superstition. New inventions were reshaping everyday life. Yet despite these extraordinary advances, many people still searched for answers that science could not provide. Could the mind influence the body? Could belief affect health? Could thoughts shape success? Out of this atmosphere emerged a movement that would lay the foundation for modern manifestation. It became known as the New Thought movement. Unlike ancient spiritual traditions, New Thought combined elements of Christianity, philosophy, psychology, and metaphysics into a new way of thinking about human potential. One of the earliest and most influential figures was Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. Born in 1802 in New Hampshire, Quimby had little formal education. He worked as a clockmaker before developing an interest in mesmerism, an early form of hypnotism inspired by the theories of Austrian physician Franz Anton Mesmer. Mesmer believed that an invisible force flowed through all living things. Although many of his scientific claims were eventually rejected, his work sparked widespread curiosity about the relationship between mind and body. Quimby began treating people who suffered from chronic illnesses. Over time, he became convinced that many physical conditions were connected to mental beliefs. He argued that fear, false assumptions, and deeply held negative expectations could contribute to illness. Conversely, changing a person's beliefs could sometimes improve their well-being. Today, psychologists recognize that the mind can influence physical health in meaningful ways. Stress affects the immune system. Anxiety alters heart rate and hormone levels. Hope and optimism can improve recovery in certain situations. However, modern medicine also makes an important distinction. Mental outlook can influence health, but it does not eliminate disease or replace evidence-based treatment. Quimby's ideas nevertheless attracted many followers. Among those influenced by his work was Mary Baker Eddy, who later founded Christian Science. Although Quimby and Eddy eventually disagreed about the origins of their teachings, both contributed to a growing belief that consciousness played an important role in human experience. As the movement expanded, writers and lecturers began promoting a revolutionary message. Human beings possessed untapped potential. Negative thinking limited success. Positive thinking opened new possibilities. The focus gradually shifted beyond healing. People began applying these ideas to prosperity, relationships, creativity, and personal achievement. By the late 19th century, dozens of New Thought organizations had appeared throughout the United States. They taught that individuals could improve their lives by changing their thoughts, attitudes, and expectations. Some emphasized spiritual laws. Others focused on practical self-improvement. One influential author was Wallace D. Wattles. In 1910, he published The Science of Getting Rich. Despite its title, the book was less about financial formulas than about cultivating a mindset of purpose, confidence, and persistent action. Wattles argued that success required clear thinking, gratitude, and disciplined effort. Although modern readers often associate his work with manifestation, he repeatedly stressed the importance of taking consistent action. Simply wishing for success was never enough. Another important figure was William Walker Atkinson. Writing under both his own name and various pseudonyms, Atkinson produced dozens of books on mental science, concentration, visualization, and personal development. Many concepts now associated with manifestation, including mental vibration, focused intention, and subconscious influence, became widely popular through his writings. During the same period, psychology itself was emerging as a scientific discipline. Researchers were beginning to investigate memory, perception, emotion, and learning through controlled observation rather than philosophy alone. This created an interesting divide. While psychologists searched for measurable evidence, New Thought teachers explored experiences that were often personal and difficult to test scientifically. The two fields sometimes overlapped. They also frequently disagreed. As the 20th century approached, one central message united nearly every branch of the New Thought movement. Your thoughts matter. Not because thinking alone changes the universe, but because thinking changes you. It affects confidence, motivation, persistence, decision-making, relationships, the willingness to take risks. Whether these changes reflected spiritual law or psychological processes remained an open question. Then came one of the most influential books ever written about success. In 1937, Napoleon Hill published Think and Grow Rich. Hill claimed to have studied hundreds of highly successful individuals, including industrialists, inventors, and entrepreneurs. He concluded that achievement began with what he called a definite purpose. Clear goals, persistent belief, focused attention, relentless action. The book sold millions of copies and inspired generations of business leaders. Some historians have questioned aspects of Hill's personal stories and research methods. Even so, the broader principles he emphasized, goal setting, perseverance, and positive expectation, remain widely studied within modern psychology and business education. By the middle of the 20th century, the seeds of manifestation had firmly taken root. Ancient spirituality, personal responsibility, positive thinking, mental discipline, success philosophy, all had merged into a growing cultural movement. But the biggest explosion was still decades away. A single documentary, a best-selling book, and one unforgettable phrase: the law of attraction. Almost overnight, manifestation would become a worldwide phenomenon, reaching millions of people and forever changing the language of self-help and modern spirituality. That remarkable story begins next. Part 4, The Law of Attraction Goes Global. For most of the 20th century, the ideas behind manifestation remained relatively confined to self-help books, motivational seminars, and metaphysical communities. Millions of people had heard of positive thinking. Far fewer had heard the phrase, the law of attraction. That changed dramatically in 2006. A documentary called The Secret appeared almost overnight and quickly became an international sensation. Produced by Australian television writer Rhonda Byrne, the film brought together motivational speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, and spiritual teachers who presented a bold claim. The universe responds to your thoughts. According to the film, every thought emits a kind of energetic frequency. Positive thoughts attract positive experiences. Negative thoughts attract negative experiences. The universe, they argued, functions much like a giant mirror, reflecting back whatever energy an individual consistently projects. It was an incredibly simple message. Think positively. Visualize your goals. Believe they already belong to you. Feel gratitude as though they have already arrived. Then allow the universe to do the rest. The documentary became a global phenomenon. Millions purchased the accompanying book. It was translated into dozens of languages. Celebrities discussed it in interviews. Book clubs analyzed it. Social media filled with quotes about abundance, gratitude, and positive thinking. Vision boards suddenly became fashionable. People covered walls with photographs of dream homes, luxury cars, tropical vacations, successful careers, and ideal relationships. The goal was simple. See your future every day until your subconscious accepted it as reality. Many people reported dramatic improvements in their lives. Some described unexpected promotions. Others spoke of healthier relationships. Some credited manifestation for helping them overcome depression, anxiety, or fear. Entrepreneurs claimed it helped build successful businesses. Athletes said visualization improved their performance. Artists believed it enhanced creativity. Whether these successes resulted directly from the law of attraction or from increased motivation and focused action became the subject of intense debate. Not everyone embraced the movement. Scientists quickly pointed out that no reliable evidence demonstrated thoughts emitting mysterious frequencies capable of influencing distant events. Physicists criticized attempts to connect manifestation with quantum mechanics. Terms like energy, vibration, and frequency were often borrowed from physics but used in ways that did not reflect their scientific meanings. This created confusion. Quantum physics is one of the most successful scientific theories ever developed. It accurately predicts the behavior of particles at microscopic scales. However, it does not demonstrate that simply thinking about wealth causes money to appear. Many physicists publicly stated that popular interpretations of quantum mechanics within manifestation literature were misleading. Psychologists raised different concerns. Some warned that manifestation could encourage magical thinking. If people believed success depended only upon maintaining positive thoughts, they might neglect planning, education, or practical effort. Others worried about something even more troubling. If positive thinking supposedly attracts good experiences, would negative experiences imply someone attracted tragedy through their own thoughts? Most mental health professionals reject this conclusion. Life contains accidents, illnesses, natural disasters, economic downturns, and countless events beyond personal control. Blaming individuals for every hardship oversimplifies the complexity of reality. Yet psychologists also acknowledge that many manifestation practices have measurable benefits. Visualization can improve confidence. Gratitude exercises often increase overall well-being. Writing down goals improves commitment. Positive expectations can reduce stress and encourage persistence. These practices work not because they necessarily alter external reality through mysterious forces, but because they influence human behavior. Someone who believes success is possible is often more likely to notice opportunities, more willing to meet new people, more likely to continue after failure, more likely to develop skills over time. In that sense, belief becomes a powerful catalyst. Not magic. Motivation. Even within the manifestation community, different interpretations emerged. Some teachers insisted that the universe literally rearranges circumstances. Others argued that manifestation simply aligns individuals with opportunities already surrounding them. Still others viewed manifestation as a spiritual partnership. You set the intention. The universe provides opportunities. You must still recognize them and take action. This balanced approach gradually became increasingly popular. Instead of saying, "Think it, and it will appear," many modern teachers began saying, "Think it, believe it, then work relentlessly toward it." This shift brought manifestation closer to principles already supported by psychology. Clear goals, consistent habits, optimism, persistence, emotional resilience. self-confidence. All contribute to better outcomes. As social media expanded during the 2010s, manifestation entered another new phase. Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and podcasts introduced millions of younger audiences to concepts like scripting, affirmations, the 369 method, vision journals, lucky girl syndrome, and abundance mindsets. Some creators offered thoughtful advice rooted in psychology and self-improvement. Others made extraordinary promises. Manifest $10,000 in 24 hours. Manifest your soulmate within 1 week. Manifest perfect health simply through thought. These sensational claims attracted enormous audiences. But they also attracted criticism. Many experts cautioned that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. To date, controlled scientific studies have not demonstrated that thoughts alone can reliably produce external events through unknown universal forces. Nevertheless, the popularity of manifestation continues to grow. Perhaps because, at its heart, manifestation offers something people have always sought: hope. The belief that tomorrow can be better than today. The confidence that change is possible. The courage to imagine a different future. Whether those changes arise through spiritual law, psychological transformation, disciplined action, coincidence, or some combination of them remains one of the most fascinating questions of our time. But one thing is certain. The debate over manifestation was no longer confined to ancient temples or obscure philosophy books. It had become a worldwide conversation. And as scientists began examining these ideas more closely, a surprising discovery emerged. Several well-established psychological principles seem to explain why manifestation often feels remarkably real. Those discoveries may not prove the supernatural, but they reveal just how powerful the human mind can truly be. That is where our journey continues next. Part 5: What Psychology Reveals About Manifestation. Imagine two people applying for the same job. Both possess similar qualifications. Both have comparable experience. Yet one walks into the interview believing they have little chance of success. The other enters expecting to perform well. Who is more likely to make a positive impression? Psychologists have spent decades studying questions like this. Again and again, research has shown that expectations influence behavior in surprisingly powerful ways. Not because thoughts magically alter reality, but because thoughts often alter the person doing the thinking. One of the best-known examples is called the self-fulfilling prophecy. The concept was introduced by sociologist Robert K. Merton in 1948. A self-fulfilling prophecy occurs when a belief influences behavior in ways that help bring about the expected outcome. Consider a student who believes they can excel in school. That confidence may encourage them to study longer, participate in class, ask questions, and remain determined after setbacks. Those behaviors increase the likelihood of success. The original belief becomes reality, not through magic, but through action inspired by expectation. The opposite can also occur. Someone convinced they will fail may stop trying altogether. They avoid opportunities. They expect rejection. Eventually, failure seems to confirm their original belief. The cycle repeats itself. Manifestation often resembles this psychological process. Belief changes behavior. Behavior changes outcomes. Another fascinating phenomenon is known as the placebo effect. For decades, medical researchers have documented cases where patients experience genuine improvements after receiving treatments with no active medical ingredients. A sugar pill. A saline injection. Even fake surgeries in carefully controlled clinical trials have sometimes produced measurable improvements. The treatment itself was inactive. Yet the patient's expectation triggered real biological changes. Pain decreased. Stress hormones shifted. Symptoms improved. The placebo effect does not cure every illness. Nor does it replace genuine medical treatment. But it demonstrates something remarkable. The mind can influence the body far more than people once believed. Some supporters of manifestation point to the placebo effect as evidence that belief possesses hidden power. Scientists agree that expectation matters. However, they caution against extending placebo research to claims that thoughts alone can directly alter external events. The evidence supports internal changes, not supernatural ones. Another important concept is selective attention. Every second, your brain processes millions of pieces of information. Only a tiny fraction reaches conscious awareness. The brain constantly filters information to avoid becoming overwhelmed. One structure involved in this process is the reticular activating system, often shortened to the RAS. Think of it as a mental filter. It helps determine what deserves your attention. Suppose you decide to buy a red pickup truck. Suddenly, red pickup trucks seem to appear everywhere. They were always there. Your brain simply began noticing them. Goal setting works much the same way. Once your mind becomes focused on a specific objective, opportunities connected to that objective become easier to recognize. Someone determined to start a business may suddenly notice networking events, educational courses, potential partners, or new customers that previously escaped their attention. Nothing supernatural occurred. Their awareness simply changed. Manifestation techniques often rely heavily on this principle. Visualization keeps goals active within conscious awareness. As a result, opportunities become easier to identify. Another psychological factor is confirmation bias. Human beings naturally seek information that supports existing beliefs. At the same time, we often overlook information that contradicts those beliefs. Imagine someone believes manifestation always works. When they receive unexpected good news, they credit manifestation. When nothing happens, they may assume they simply didn't believe strongly enough or that the universe has different timing. Either way, the original belief remains intact. Confirmation bias affects everyone. Scientists, investors, politicians, doctors, teachers, and spiritual seekers alike. Recognizing this tendency helps us evaluate extraordinary claims more carefully. Psychologists have also studied optimism itself. Optimistic individuals generally experience better emotional health. They recover more quickly from setbacks. They persist longer when facing challenges. They tend to maintain stronger social relationships. They often enjoy lower levels of chronic stress. These advantages accumulate over years. Optimism alone does not guarantee success, but it can improve the odds by encouraging behaviors associated with long-term achievement. Confidence also changes the way other people respond. Someone who communicates clearly, maintains eye contact, smiles naturally, and expresses enthusiasm often creates stronger first impressions. Those positive interactions can open doors professionally and personally. Again, mindset influences reality. Through human behavior. Neuroscience offers another intriguing perspective. The brain constantly rewires itself through experience. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. Learning new skills, developing healthier habits, practicing gratitude, and changing negative thinking patterns can physically alter neural connections over time. Repeated thoughts strengthen certain pathways. Repeated behaviors strengthen them further. Gradually, new habits become automatic. This process explains why daily affirmations, gratitude journals, meditation, and visualization sometimes produce meaningful changes. Not because they instantly transform the outside world, but because they gradually transform the person practicing them. Of course, psychology also warns against unrealistic expectations. Positive thinking cannot eliminate every obstacle. Hard work still matters. Education matters. Planning matters. Luck matters. Timing matters. Economic conditions matter. Relationships matter. Health matters. Life remains wonderfully complex. Many successful people visualize their goals. Many unsuccessful people do as well. The difference usually lies in what happens after the visualization ends. Do they create a plan? Develop new skills? Adapt after failure? Continue despite disappointment? Take calculated risks? Learn from mistakes? Action remains the bridge between dreams and reality. Perhaps this explains why manifestation continues attracting believers and skeptics alike. Its techniques often produce genuine psychological benefits. Its more extraordinary claims remain difficult to verify. The line between inspiration and supernatural influence becomes increasingly difficult to define. As science continues exploring the remarkable capabilities of the human mind, one truth grows clearer. Our thoughts matter. Not because every thought reshapes the universe, but because every thought has the potential to reshape us. And when people change, their lives often change as well. But psychology is only one side of the story. Many believers insist there is something far deeper at work. Something science has not yet fully explained. Next, we'll explore the extraordinary stories that keep the mystery of manifestation alive. Part 6: Extraordinary Stories, Coincidence or Something More? Throughout history, people have shared remarkable stories that seem almost impossible to explain. A person imagines meeting the perfect partner, only to encounter them days later. An entrepreneur repeatedly visualizes launching a successful business, then unexpectedly meets the investor who changes everything. Someone dreams of moving to another country. Months later, an unforeseen opportunity makes that dream a reality. To believers, these are examples of manifestation at work. To skeptics, they are coincidences given meaning after the fact. But why do these stories feel so compelling? One reason is that human beings are natural storytellers. Our brains are constantly searching for patterns. Finding meaning in random events helped our ancestors survive. Recognizing danger quickly or identifying opportunities offered a clear advantage. As a result, the human mind often connects events into meaningful narratives. Sometimes those connections reveal genuine cause and effect. Sometimes they simply reflect coincidence. Psychologists call this tendency pattern recognition. Most of the time, it serves us well. Occasionally, however, it can lead us to see connections that may not actually exist. Imagine thinking about an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. Later that same day, they unexpectedly call. It feels extraordinary, almost supernatural. Yet consider how many people cross your mind every year without contacting you. Those moments are quickly forgotten. The rare coincidence stands out because it is unusual. This tendency is known as the availability heuristic. Extraordinary events remain vivid in memory. Ordinary events fade into the background. Still, some manifestation stories are difficult to dismiss so easily. Many successful athletes describe visualizing victory long before competition. Olympic champions often mentally rehearse every movement, every turn, every jump, every finish line. When the real event arrives, it feels strangely familiar. Sports psychologists have studied this practice for decades. Mental rehearsal can improve confidence, reduce anxiety, and strengthen focus. While visualization alone cannot replace physical training, combining the two often enhances performance. Business leaders tell similar stories. Oprah Winfrey has spoken about the importance of intention and gratitude. Jim Carrey famously described writing himself a $10 million check years before achieving major success in Hollywood. Actor Will Smith has discussed the power of belief and visualization throughout his career. These stories inspire millions. Yet each of these individuals also worked relentlessly. Years of rejection, countless auditions, long hours, persistent effort. Manifestation, if it played any role, existed alongside extraordinary dedication. Perhaps one of the most fascinating examples involves inventor Nikola Tesla. Tesla often claimed he could visualize machines so clearly that he mentally tested them before building physical prototypes. He imagined every moving part, every vibration, every improvement. Only after refining the design in his mind would he begin construction. Modern engineers recognize visualization as an effective creative tool. Whether Tesla's remarkable mental abilities were exceptional or simply highly developed remains a subject of admiration. Artists frequently describe similar experiences. A melody appears almost fully formed. A painting emerges vividly in the imagination before touching canvas. A novelist sees entire scenes unfold mentally before writing a single word. Creative inspiration often feels mysterious. Where ideas originate remains one of neuroscience's greatest unanswered questions. Then there are stories involving synchronicity. The famous psychologist Carl Jung introduced this term to describe meaningful coincidences that seem connected without obvious cause. Unlike simple chance, synchronicity refers to events that carry deep personal significance. Imagine searching for guidance about changing careers. The next morning, 3 unrelated conversations unexpectedly point toward the same opportunity. Were these events connected? Or did your heightened awareness simply notice information that was always present? Jung believed some coincidences possess psychological meaning beyond ordinary probability. Science has never confirmed synchronicity as a measurable force. Yet many people continue reporting experiences that feel profoundly meaningful. Manifestation communities often interpret these moments as signs from the universe. Repeated number patterns, unexpected encounters, perfect timing, doors opening just when they seemed permanently closed. Critics argue these experiences reflect selective attention and confirmation bias. Believers see evidence of something greater. Perhaps both perspectives capture part of the truth. The more clearly we define our goals, the more alert we become to opportunities. The more opportunities we recognize, the more meaningful certain coincidences appear. Whether those coincidences are guided by universal intelligence or simply by an attentive mind remains impossible to determine with certainty. One important observation appears again and again. The people who tell the most convincing manifestation stories rarely describe sitting quietly and waiting for miracles. Instead, they speak of preparation, persistence, learning, adapting, taking risks, remaining hopeful during difficult times. In other words, action. Perhaps manifestation is less about commanding the universe and more about becoming the kind of person who recognizes opportunity when it appears. Still, many mysteries remain. Why do some unlikely events happen at precisely the right moment? Why do certain coincidences seem almost impossibly meaningful? Why do similar stories appear across cultures separated by thousands of years? Science continues searching for answers. Spiritual traditions often claim they already have them. For now, the mystery remains unresolved. And perhaps that uncertainty is exactly what keeps the subject so fascinating. Because whether manifestation reflects psychology, spiritual law, coincidence, or a combination of all three, it continues to encourage millions of people to imagine a better future. And sometimes, that first act of imagination becomes the beginning of real change. Next, we'll examine the strongest arguments from skeptics, scientists, and critics who challenge the claims of manifestation and ask whether belief alone can ever truly change reality. Part 7: The Skeptic's Perspective, Separating Evidence from Belief. Every extraordinary claim invites an equally important question. Where is the evidence? For scientists, skepticism is not about dismissing new ideas. It is about testing them. If manifestation truly allows thoughts alone to influence external reality, then that effect should be measurable. It should be repeatable. And independent researchers should be able to observe it under controlled conditions. So far, that evidence has remained elusive. One of the biggest criticisms concerns the law of attraction itself. Supporters often claim that thoughts emit vibrations which attract similar events from the universe. The problem is that no known scientific instrument has detected such a process. Brain activity can certainly be measured. Electroencephalograms, or EEGs, record electrical signals produced by neurons. Functional MRI scanners reveal changes in blood flow as different regions of the brain become active. Scientists can observe thought-related activity inside the brain. What they have not found is evidence that thoughts radiate a force capable of directly altering distant events. Another common criticism involves probability. Consider this example. Suppose 1 million people spend an entire year trying to manifest financial success. Statistically, some of them will receive promotions. Some will inherit money. Some will launch successful businesses. Others will win competitions or discover unexpected opportunities. Those success stories are likely to be shared widely. Meanwhile, the countless people whose lives remained unchanged rarely become headlines. This is known as survivorship bias. We tend to notice the winners while overlooking everyone else. History is full of examples. Books about billionaires rarely examine the thousands of equally hardworking entrepreneurs whose companies failed. Success receives attention. Failure often disappears from view. Manifestation stories can follow the same pattern. Confirmation bias presents another challenge. Human beings naturally search for evidence supporting existing beliefs. Imagine someone spends months repeating affirmations about finding love. Eventually, they begin dating someone special. They credit manifestation. If the relationship never develops, however, they may conclude they simply needed greater faith or better timing. In either outcome, the original belief survives. Psychologists recognize this tendency across many areas of life. It affects investing, politics, religion, medical decisions, and everyday personal judgments. Recognizing confirmation bias helps us evaluate our experiences more objectively. Critics also point to the problem of unfalsifiable claims. A scientific idea must be capable of being proven wrong if evidence contradicts it. For example, gravity predicts that objects fall toward Earth. If objects suddenly floated upward under identical conditions, scientists would know something was wrong with the theory. Manifestation, however, is often explained in ways that avoid clear testing. If success occurs, manifestation receives the credit. If success does not occur, believers may say the individual doubted too much, held subconscious resistance, needed more patience, or that the universe had a different plan. These explanations make the theory difficult to test objectively. Some philosophers argue that beliefs framed this way fall outside the boundaries of scientific investigation. That does not necessarily make them false. It simply makes them difficult to verify using traditional scientific methods. There is another concern that mental health professionals frequently raise: toxic positivity. The phrase describes the pressure to remain positive at all times, regardless of circumstances. While optimism can be healthy, suppressing grief, fear, sadness, or anger may actually delay emotional healing. Human emotions exist for a reason. Loss deserves mourning. Failure teaches valuable lessons. Fear sometimes protects us from danger. Pretending these emotions do not exist rarely makes them disappear. Healthy psychology encourages acknowledging difficult emotions rather than denying them. Another criticism involves personal responsibility. Some manifestation teachings imply that every experience results directly from an individual's thoughts. Critics argue this idea can become harmful. It risks blaming people for circumstances beyond their control. Natural disasters, serious illness, economic recessions, acts of violence, childhood adversity. Few psychologists or philosophers would suggest that individuals consciously created such events through thought alone. Life is influenced by countless interconnected factors: chance, genetics, environment, society, timing, personal decisions, and the actions of others. Reducing every outcome to manifestation oversimplifies an extraordinarily complex world. Even many spiritual teachers reject that interpretation. Instead, they emphasize responding wisely to life's challenges rather than assuming every event was consciously attracted. There is also the question of false hope. Imagine someone facing a serious medical diagnosis. If they are told that positive thinking alone will cure them, they may delay seeking evidence-based treatment. Doctors strongly caution against replacing proven medical care with unsupported claims. Optimism can certainly support emotional well-being during illness, but it should complement, not replace, professional health care. Despite these criticisms, something interesting has happened over the past several decades. Many psychologists who remain skeptical of supernatural manifestation nevertheless recommend practices commonly associated with it. Goal setting, visualization, gratitude, mindfulness, positive self-talk, meditation. Why? Because substantial research suggests these practices improve focus, emotional resilience, and motivation. The techniques themselves often work. The debate centers on why they work. Believers attribute results to universal laws. Scientists usually attribute them to changes in attention, behavior, emotion, and decision-making. Perhaps this explains why the discussion continues. Both sides observe real changes. They simply interpret those changes differently. One sees invisible spiritual forces. The other sees well-understood psychological processes. Both agree on one point. What happens inside the mind matters. The disagreement begins when asking whether the mind reaches beyond the individual to shape external reality itself. That question remains unanswered. And perhaps it will remain unanswered for some time. Because the boundary between science and spirituality has never been entirely clear. In our final chapter, we'll bring together everything we've explored, from ancient philosophy and modern psychology to extraordinary personal stories and scientific skepticism, and ask one final question. Is manifestation ultimately a myth? A reality? Or something far more complex than either label alone?